there was a landslide, and the connection between the two parts of a hill had completely, it had completely broken away because of landslide. After I reached the other side safely, I remember thanking God and crying to the extent I could just to be live and be a part of that group all over again. Hello everyone, this is Harshika Singh. I'm an IAS Officer of 2012 batch belonging to Madhya Pradesh cadre and presently posted as Collector and DM of a district called Mandla in MP. So we joined Labasna on 3rd of September 2012. That was the first day. I definitely have very fond memories of that particular day when our registration started, and we got that most coveted IAS card that I can think of. And also we take our oath on the very first day, and I remember that oath taking ceremony was extremely special. All the entire batch, all of us were pretty excited in the best and the most high moment of our life. We had all assembled together in an auditorium, and I still remember that oath that we took. And even today, whenever I feel down or there is something happening in my life that is not proper, especially in my professional life, I still remember that day when I took that oath, and that gives me a lot of motivation to carry on with my work. When in those days in Labasna, we always had to share our rooms, and usually they used to put people from different services together. So I think one of my most special friends up to now in my life has been my first roomie in Labasna. She was Radhika, and she was from Karnataka cadre. She's an IPS officer there, and she was more like within a very short time we had a very good relationship, and she was more like a sister to me than a batchmate or more like a friend. And obviously I think I was again blessed to stay in the most famous hostel of Labasna, which is Ganga. I still remember my room number, it was G303, and that room in itself, the picturesque valleys and everything, the sight that I had from that room, even though it was a small room, it was slightly small for two of us to put up there, but nothing mattered to us. It was just the most comfortable place then for us in this entire wide world. And I think my stay in Ganga and those initial days were definitely a very beautiful and a pious moment for me. So basically after that, once you join Labasna, the FC starts. And in our time, because there was limited accommodation on campus, so just people from 3 services, which was IAS, IPS and Foreign Service, 3 services people used to live together in FC. And I think UPSC had been I don't know how, but they have been very clear in selecting people for these 3 services as per the aptitude and attitude in life, if I may say so. Because we always remember that the Foreign Service people were pretty good in having that soft skill in managing themselves, sitting and standing up in that proper etiquette manner and everything. The IPS people were full of life and enjoying themselves like anything. IAS was comparatively a silent community that was more into academics, even in FC, if I may say so. And I think that was one of the most beautiful period. Those initial 6 months that we then had as an FC fellow was the most beautiful time. I remember we were taken to a trek, which was around 12 days Himalayan trek. And for anyone or someone like me who was not much into physical exercise and things like that, trekking around 152 kilometers on foot was itself a very big achievement for me. I remember we had been organizing these India Day, wherein you have these, as per your cadres that you were allotted to, you had these India Day celebrations happening as per the zones, and we were putting up our cultural activities. We were enjoying a lot of these all India, pan-India cuisines that were put up, and even that was followed with the village visit. During the village visit, I was taken to a panchayat in Haryana, which is actually, that is Jeend district mein there was this panchayat, and I remember that panchayat was pretty notorious for its female feticide. And in fact, for me personally, the kind of background that I belong to, it was my first exposure and the first taste of the rural life. But those 7 days would always be remembered by me, and that gave me an exposure to the rural way of life for the first time. So basically, yes, I mean, we were a pretty big batch. We were around 180 of us were there in IAS itself. Then there were others in IPS and IFS, and it was a very good camaraderie that we had on campus. We were all in the best of ourselves because we all had achieved what we wanted to achieve till then in our life, and we were in the best state of mind. By God's grace, yes, I met my life partner in academy itself, and it so conspired that our parents had also met and we never knew about it. So they were meeting, we were meeting in Labasna, everything was being put in line, and I think it was a blessing. It was something which was destined to happen, and I think that was one of the most beautiful thing that has happened to me in Labasna, I would say. Apart from this, if I may say so, for phase 2, I mean phase 1 and phase 2 that happens, these are essentially a very important part of the training for an IAS OT, if I may say so, because by then you are not an officer, you are then an officer trainee up to then. So the phase 1 is when you are done with your FC, you are done with your Bharat Darshan, you are back on the campus, all your other batchmates of other services are back to their training centers, and you basically get into the actual training mode. So basically phase 1 is the actual training for IAS officer that happens on campus, and it is more into academics, it is more into orienting you with what is going to come in your life, be it law and order, be it different developmental thing that is going to happen, that you're going to face in your life. Phase 2 is when you return back after district training, and you already have some exposure of the field, and then you go back and share your experience, share your doubts. Your senior and your mentors guide you across. So each phase has its own I would say charishma, but most importantly, I think the training in Labasna, right from FC to phase 1 to phase 2, that happens in the initial 2 years of your life, that molds you as an officer, because till then you are just a normal college going student who has cracked an exam. But once you reach Labasna, you get this feeling that you have to be a responsible individual who has to take up the responsibility of handling maybe a subdivision or later on a district, which is a big responsibility. Then going ahead, apart from the implementation work that you would be doing in initial 14 to 15 years of your life, you would then land up in making the policies that would guide the shape of the country or the state that you would be serving in. And this entire work frame into which you will be pushed into is actually brought to sense during this entire training that starts right from FC. FC is more about breaking all your myths, it's more about camaraderie, it's more about you being yourself. But phase 1 and phase 2 is serious training, which means that you are actually brought to the level wherein you can be just released on the field and you have to take up the challenges straight on the face. The most, I would say, the day that has actually instilled that sense of me being an officer was my last day of that convocation ceremony. I remember the then Defense Minister visiting us and giving his speech, and the way he said that you are a very important asset for this country and you can make this country in or guide it in whichever direction you want to take it to. I think those were very simple words, but the way it was being said, the way it was being communicated to us, it hit me like anything, and I still remember those two lines. The other thing is that, the scariest thing I would like to share, not the funny, but the scariest, that was during the Himalayan trek. If you might remember, 2012-13 was also the period when there was a lot of landslide in Uttarakhand, and the weather conditions were not very congenial for trekking, etc. But we were there on the trekking field, and I remember there was this one stretch very close to Gangotri. wherein there was a landslide, and the connection between the two parts of a hill had completely, it had completely broken away because of landslide. So there was this one rope that was actually made in the form of a ladder, and we with around 6-7 kgs on our back, we were expected without, I for one didn't had any kind of training per se that I could have taken up such kind of expedition. So to walk on that rope and to go on the other side, there was just Ganga below and open sky above, and you were for yourself to protect yourself. I still remember those, that could be minimum 300 meters, and after I crossed that stretch, after I reached the other side safely, I remember thanking God and crying to the extent I could, just to be live and be a part of that group all over again. But yeah, that was the most scariest thing up to now in my life. So all I would say is that all of us as aspirants have this photo of Labasna put on our table, and I think whenever we get demotivated, we just revisit that photo again and again. And I think it is important, that photograph is a motivation for us. And I think it's also very important that right from the day that you think or plan to take up UPSC, first be very clear as to why you want to be a civil servant. And once you have planned or thought about this fact that you want to be a civil servant, don't think about how tough this exam is, how many seats are there, how many seats is reserved, etc. You only need one seat to be there as an IAS or an IPS or whatever service officer. And with that motivation, every morning get up, tell yourself that you are destined to be that officer, and one day you will definitely achieve your dream.